do have a name for baby girl. We are like 99.9% sure that this is her name. I did obviously get a bunch of questions on my birth plan this time around, and if I plan on doing home birth. There were some things that came up that were not great. I would love to not have to go down that route and for this to just naturally be rectified on its own. Hello you guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Beth. I make all kinds of motherhood and lifestyle videos here on YouTube, and today I am doing my second trimester recap update / Q&A. I honestly did not have a sweet clue that second trimester was ending. It was a couple of days ago that I checked on the baby app on my phone to see where I was at, where I was sitting at, because I had an appointment coming up and I knew they were gonna ask, and I realized that my second trimester was going to be ending this week. So I think it actually does end for me tomorrow. Technically I'm still in second trimester, but I will be entering into third trimester very soon, which is crazy. Baby number 3, everything obviously just seems to fly by. So I thought I would just update you guys on how things are going so far, answer some of the most common questions that came in, kind of about the pregnancy and about birth and baby and all those different things. So if you're interested in any of that, then just keep on watching. My second trimester experience this time was relatively smooth. There were a couple of hiccups and little things that came up along the way, just with appointments and things like that, and I will update you guys on all of that and where things are currently sitting in this video. But for the most part, from a pregnancy perspective, things were pretty good. It's kind of hard for me to look back on second trimester and have positive feelings about the time because I was just sick for so much of what was my second trimester. I think when I was about 16 or 17 weeks pregnant, I developed a head cold, and when you're pregnant, it's not fun to have, but everybody gets head colds. It's not that big of a deal. And so I was going through that, but then it didn't ever really get better. Eventually that head cold actually turned into sinusitis, and that was terrible because when you're pregnant, it's already kind of getting a little bit harder to breathe. You have to sleep on your side, and when your nose is stuffed, sometimes one side is worse than the other for things like that. I ended up getting really bad jaw pain, head pressure, headaches, all of these different things. Sinusitis was not fun, but the sinusitis didn't really have a chance to properly heal. And I'm sure that was a combination of the fact that I was pregnant, immune system was down, my body was prioritizing baby as it should, but then I'm also already a mom of 2 and chasing 2 young toddlers around. So the sinusitis actually turned into pneumonia, and I don't have any enemies, but if I did, I would not wish pregnancy pneumonia on any of them. It was honestly the worst, and I didn't realize that it was pneumonia for a really long time. It was actually, we had some family here over the holidays and they were like, you don't sound good, but I was like, I have sounded like this for weeks and weeks now. And so it had developed and had gotten worse, and eventually I ended up going into the doctor. They said the way through this for you is going to be antibiotics, and I wasn't stoked on that, but felt confident that it was the right thing for me to do. And so I did get better after that point and have felt so much better since that whole kind of situation has resolved. But all that being said, it's hard for me to say that this was a good second trimester just because I did spend so much of it so ill, coughing constantly, peeing my pants every time I coughed. It was not fun, but we are through that point, and if I remove all of the sickness from it, I feel like it was generally a good second trimester. I was really tired in first trimester, and I did feel like I got some of that energy back in second trimester. When that energy came back, I feel like a lot of the second trimester things that I maybe had dealt with in past pregnancies, I have not really dealt with this time around. Things like leg cramps, joint pain, kind of brain fog to a certain degree, and I do think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've been supplementing. I also think that in discovering how helpful the right vitamins have been for me, that it has also opened my eyes in a new way to how helpful they can also be for our kids. And that's why I am so excited to be working with Hiya on this video. You know that we are huge fans of Hiya over here, and if you have never heard of them before, it is a children's multivitamin that promotes full body nourishment, but it's also clean and it tastes great. Something that I think is really important to recognize is the fact that a lot of the children's multivitamins that are available these days are kind of just like candy for kids. Enter Hiya. Hiya is pediatrician approved. It's got 0 added sugar, 0 gummy junk, and it also has 12 organic fruits and veggies, as well as 15 essential vitamins and minerals like vitamin D, vitamin B12, zinc, folate, and a lot of other nutrients that help our kids to grow and develop in a healthy way. As much as we do our best as parents to offer them the healthiest foods that we can, sometimes you need a little bit of backup, and for me, that is Hiya. It's non-GMO, vegan, dairy-free, nut-free, free of all of the allergens, so you don't have to worry about any of that. It will come to your doorstep monthly. The first order will come in this really cute glass bottle that your kids can actually customize, and then beyond that point, to minimize waste, they actually send this plastic-free pouch that you can empty into your vitamin bottle, so it's not just good for your kids, it's also better for the planet. Hiya is offering viewers of my channel 50% off of your first order, and so to take advantage of that offer, all you have to do is go to the link in my description box, which is hiyahealth.com/BethMoore to save 50% off. So I hope that you guys check it out, and thank you so much to Hiya for working with me on today's video. As you guys know, at our 20-week ultrasound, we did find out about baby's gender, and it is a little baby girl that we are welcoming, and I don't know if I've ever shared like my thoughts on how I'm feeling about that yet, but I am so excited. I was going to be so excited either way, but I think because I did just have a boy the last time, having a girl feels like more of a distant memory in my head, and I'm excited to be able to experience that again. My little girl right now is so excited about it and is constantly asking if baby girl can come and sleep in her bedroom and all of these different things. So I feel like that is going to be really cool, especially because I also have a sister. It is so fun to now be in similar stages of life together and to be such close friends because we are so similar to each other. And I know that every sibling relationship is different, so you can't put like so much stock into it, but I really am hoping that it's going to be this lifelong friendship that we'll get to see start developing even in just a few months now. So super excited that it's a girl. When it comes to the 20-week ultrasound, there were some things that came up that were not great. At this point in time, I'm not stressed about any of it, to be honest with you guys. I have had something come up at the 20-week scan pretty well every time. It's one of the reasons why I feel like there is just way too much information available to us now at some of these appointments, and it's not helpful for moms to have, because a lot of the time they are looking at things in situations where baby is 20 weeks old. There is so much room for them to grow and to change. On that note, the thing that came up with my 20-week scan, they are saying I have what is called a circumvallate placenta. If you have been a viewer of my channel now for the last, I don't even know how long, 2.5, 3 years, you might remember that this exact same thing happened with my scan with Vivian, my first baby girl. So at the 20-week mark, I went and had the ultrasound done, and they told me that I had circumvallate placenta, which is basically a placental abnormality where the placenta attaches in a way to the uterus that is not best case scenario. Essentially, it's kind of like impacted, and so it's like folded over in a weird way, and you would think that that would mean that it would just be like baby is really firmly attached to you, but because of the fact that it's not nature's way ideally of attaching to the uterine lining, essentially what that means is that you have a higher risk of placental abruption, of needing an emergency C-section at the end, of having a preterm baby, and also potentially your baby coming out on the small side and having nutrient deficiencies. I don't know if any of that made sense, but that is what circumvallate placenta is. I, in my first pregnancy, when I heard that, carried a ton of fear about it, because I had never given birth before. I had no idea what this was gonna mean. I couldn't find anybody who had gone through that before. And so that felt very isolating and freaky. And I just remember being so worried, like, if I exercise too much, is my placenta gonna separate? Is this gonna mean birth is gonna be super challenging for me? All of these things. Long story short, I gave birth to Vivian, my first baby. They took the placenta out, no sign of circumvallate placenta. They literally held the placenta up to me and they were like, I don't know how that got flagged, but your placenta is totally normal. So fast forwarding to the results and kind of follow-up of my 20-week scan, when I heard that I had circumvallate placenta again, I was just like, honestly, probably not. And I don't know if that's the right approach to take, but when you look at the research behind it, it is such a small and like minute percentage of pregnancies that have this happen at all. And so for me to have it happen twice, I literally think that it's just the way that my placentas happen to attach and the way that I happen to grow babies. I could be wrong in that. Maybe there is some worry warranted here. I don't know. But at this point, I am not going to take any worry on. I'm going to operate the same way that I would have operated before not having that information. And I don't know. I guess when the placenta comes out, we'll see. At this point in the game, my midwives are also not concerned about it at all and are saying like, nope, I think that you are right in not taking on any worry. And again, we'll just kind of see how things pan out. One thing that I will be doing towards the end of my pregnancy again, so around 34, 36-ish weeks, is checking on the growth of baby because of this condition. The other reason that I usually do have that recommended by my care providers is because of the fact that I tend to grow babies that are large for their gestational age. I did finally get the results back from my glucose blood test that I did a few weeks ago. So if you don't follow me over on Instagram, I had basically just been like updating you guys there. I have had to go back for the 3-hour test for high blood sugar levels in all of my pregnancies, and I really did not want that to happen this time. But I feel like in previous times, I have been told to just eat like regularly, normally, and then fast and go into the appointment. But this time I was like, I understand that they want to get it from like a realistic, holistic snapshot, but I am almost positive that if I like full on carb load with a bowl of pasta the night before the test, that is going to impact my blood sugar levels. And if I have a bowl of ice cream, it's going to impact it. So basically this time was the first time that I ate a little bit more mindfully before going into the fast and then the test. I didn't really have any added sugars the night before. I didn't have a huge like heavy carb filled dinner. I did have rice, but I wasn't eating like bowls and bowls of starch or anything like that. And I don't know if that's what made the difference this time around, but I am happy to report that my blood levels came back normal. I don't have to go back for the 3-hour test this time, which is amazing. And I am confirmed to not have a gestational diabetes. So that is definitely a praise report. I would say that last week, like 26 weeks, I started to get more Braxton Hicks and just feelings of like almost period-like cramps, and a period beginning is what it feels like right now. It's nothing too crazy, but I will say that that was enough to get me like in that headspace. I feel like it's time for me to start thinking about birth a lot more, thinking about some of the techniques and reminding myself of that, and just considering a plan and what all of those pieces are going to look like. The final not so great update on my pregnancy, where it currently stands, is that I actually got some news from the midwife yesterday, which was kind of discouraging. And again, I'm trying not to be concerned about it because so much can change at this point, and I have full faith that it will. But as of 27 weeks, baby girl is still currently breech. So her head is not engaged in my pelvis. It is all the way up here, and her feet are still down low, and a flip has not taken place. At 27 weeks, I think that I read that like 25% or a quarter of pregnant women still have babies that are breech, and it's more of like 34 weeks, 36 weeks that you would start to be like, okay, we gotta get this baby to flip. For right now, I think that there are, of course, lots of things that I can do to help encourage that, but she does have the opportunity to do a lot of flipping just on her own, especially if she's not huge and she does have the space to move around in there. But the thing that I am trying to like not get too caught up on is feeling like, because I usually do have bigger babies, that she probably is already a decent size, and maybe she's not so small that she's just flipping. Maybe she's stuck there. Maybe I've done something wrong with the way that I've been sitting and having her positioned that way. And so it's just the way that your brain can kind of jump to different scenarios as soon as you hear news like that. But again, I am really confident that she will have flipped by 34 weeks, and that's what we're praying for and believing for. In the meantime, I am going to be on my Spinning Babies grind. If you guys haven't heard of that resource before, it is so great when it comes to preventing breech deliveries and kind of helping your baby and encouraging them to get into the right spot in your pelvis to have labor and delivery go as smooth as possible. The difference is that at this point in my other 2 pregnancies, both of my babies were already head down, and most babies actually are head down at this point because baby knows where they need to be for birth to happen. They just instinctively start to flip that way, and then most stay that way. Mine has not done that yet. So basically what that means from a birth perspective is that things would need to change, because unfortunately where I live, providers like either midwives, nurses, OBs, whatever it looks like, don't actually do vaginal deliveries for breech babies. Breech delivery is just not something that healthcare providers are trained in anymore. Almost always it ends up being a planned C-section or an emergency C-section. So obviously that news is like, oh gosh, I would love to not have to go down that route and for this to just naturally be rectified on its own. So that is certainly a prayer request that I will just put out to you guys. If you could be praying with us that baby would flip before 34 to 36 weeks, that would be amazing. On that note, let's dive into some of the questions, because I did obviously get a bunch of questions on my birth plan this time around, and if I plan on doing home birth. And at this point, yes, that is still my plan, is to have a home birth with this baby. But again, it will be if everything is safe and everything looks good and my birthing team is kind of backing me up with that. If baby was breech, I don't think that I would attempt a home birth, especially if my midwives don't feel confident in it. I know that there's like a growing number of women that are feeling more confident to actually birth unassisted and alone with just their partners at home. As much as I love having freedom of choice and creating the right birth environment for you and removing all of the stress and things like that, for me, that would be a huge stress, is not having some backup in the room and someone that would know what to do in the case of an emergency, because I just need to have people in the room that know what to do in different scenarios for my body to even be relaxed enough to go into labor naturally. So I wouldn't do a home birth if baby girl didn't flip or if something else came up along the way, but Lord willing, that will be the game plan this time around. And it does feel weird having everybody know that now, because last time I did keep that really private until after the birth happened, just so that I wouldn't get all the opinions and thoughts. And I'm sure I'm gonna have to do a lot more like protecting my mental headspace this time, because people love to share their comments on how you should and shouldn't birth, but you gotta do at the end of the day what you feel is right for you and your baby. Have you had any pelvic floor dysfunction after having babies? So the worst pelvic floor dysfunction that I have had would be after I had Vivian. I had really bad prolapse after I gave birth to her. I think it was just from honestly the 1 hour of pushing medicated and with an epidural. As much as I could feel what was happening, I was just like bearing down in that like supine position and doing exactly what the OBs were telling me to do. So they were like telling me to hold my breath, to push like I was pooping, and there was just so much force that was directed at that zone. And one of the things that resulted from that was pretty bad prolapse that I had to actually work with a physio on for a number of months to get past. And it was kind of like a feeling of heaviness every time I would stand up, and just like general discomfort. So with Jude in my pregnancy with him, I didn't really have that much pelvic pain, and if I did, I felt like I had a lot of the experience from physio that I could really quickly rectify it, like peeing with sneezing and things like that. This time around, the only pelvic floor dysfunction that I've experienced is when I had pneumonia. I was just coughing so much, you guys, that my pelvic floor was exhausted, and it was not holding up for me. But literally as soon as I got past pneumonia, it felt like everything had gone back to normal. I honestly feel like my experience has been pretty good given that my babies have been so close together, and I'm just hoping and praying that I can do a good job when it comes to birth and protecting that area of my body this time so I don't have a crazy pelvic floor recovery process again afterwards. How do you balance getting rest and being present with your babies while being pregnant? There was a bunch of questions about what rest looks like in this season and how to navigate when you already have children or multiples pregnancy exhaustion. And to be honest with you guys, I am always at least a little bit tired. I feel like most moms with young kids are, especially kids that are waking up occasionally throughout the night, or when you're getting up to pee in pregnancy in general, like you're gonna be tired. I will say that trying to support my body the best that I can through eating good food and supplements and daily movement and things like that do help a lot with energy levels. But at the end of the day, this is also just kind of a tiring season. And so there is coffee for that. There is early bedtimes for that. I would love to be able to say that I take a lot of daytime naps, but I honestly don't, just because I work from home for myself. And so I need to take those opportunities generally to get work done. But when it comes to all the other factors that contribute to energy levels, I do my best with all of them. And then also just accept that this season is a little bit more tiring than previous seasons of my life, and more tiring than a lot of the seasons in my future will be as well. And so there is coffee and there is grace every day. Do you want a baby moon or a push gift? I mean, I'm certainly open to receiving push presents. On the baby moon note, Jared and I actually are going on a little getaway very soon, very unexpectedly, and I'm so excited about it. It's actually through his work, so it's gonna be like a work trip for the first little bit with like a conference we're attending, and then the back half of it will be able to just relax with our friends. But it's happening in Florida, and I'm so excited because it is freezing here in Canada right now, like -20, -30 Celsius, and I'm just so excited to be out of that cold for at least a little while. I just know that that is going to be so rejuvenating for me as a person, and I'm also planning on using that time to mentally kind of like switch into thinking more about birth prep and getting into that headspace and reflecting and praying on what we're about to enter into with another newborn. So it's not like a real baby moon, but I'm treating it that way. Someone asked which pregnancy was the hardest. Definitely the first pregnancy. Everything just feels like very intense and new, and you're also just more anxious, I feel like, over the symptoms you're experiencing and whether or not things are going the way that they're supposed to go. I also feel like the ending of my first pregnancy and like coming up to birth was more freaky than it has been with any other of my pregnancies, just because there's so much unknown around it. I think if I had to choose a favorite pregnancy so far, it would probably be my second pregnancy with Jude, just because I only had one toddler, so life was a little bit busier, but I had more experience with it, so I was more calm. It was just like a little bit smoother. This time, I feel like my pregnancy has been the easiest, but I have less time to think about pregnancy in general. I honestly have not given it very much thought at all, if I'm being honest with you guys. So I would say that the second has been my favorite so far. This one has probably been the easiest, and the first was the hardest. A lot of people asked about whether I am nervous to have two toddlers and a newborn and being outnumbered and all of these things. Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we had friends with a newborn come over the other day and had like dinner with them, and to see the dynamic between our two kids at the table, us at the table, and then also Jared was holding the newborn for most of the meal. It was crazy because the baby was crying on and off, like our kids were asking for things and spilling their water cups over, and I was just like, wow, this is literally what our house is about to look like in a few months. And everyone's baby is different. I know that the kids are going to react to the fact that that's their sibling in a different way than just having guests over, but I'm sure that that will be a little bit of a shock for the first while. But when it comes to being like outnumbered, I honestly am anticipating 3 to be an easier easier adjustment just because the transition from 1 to 2 was so hard with my husband being in the thick of renovations for all of that time. I feel like I was outnumbered when we had 2 because he was at work all day and then had to come home and work on the basement renovation. So I feel like I was outnumbered already when we had 2, and now we're just kind of adding another one to the mix. So if anything, I will have more support from him this time, and I'm really looking forward to that. I had so many questions from people about like preparing to introduce another sibling and how to go about that. So I'm actually going to share a link here of a video that I made about transitioning from 1 to 2 kids here. I feel like it applies whether it's 2 to 3, 3 to 4, whatever that looks like, because it talks about how to prepare that sibling and coach them through the process of adding another one to the mix. And so I'm just gonna leave that there instead of diving into that question like in detail. I will answer one more question, and basically it's all about baby girl's name. So I had so many people ask for hints on baby girl's name, if we've chosen it yet, what kind of style we are using, whether or not I'm gonna do a video on it. And when it comes to the video thing, I've been surprised at how many people have asked for a baby names video just because I feel like I've already done it. I've done it for boys, I've done it for girls. If enough people in the comment section here actually want me to make that video, I will do it. I just don't want to be like putting out boring and repetitive content. However, we do have a name for baby girl. We are like 99.9% sure that this is her name. We've been calling her that name. Our kids have been calling her that name, and I think that that has been really helpful to also just prepare them in advance. It's definitely very similar to the vein of the first girl's name that I chose. I will share it with you guys when she's born, but I love it. I think it's so pretty. It's not a name that was on my first list for our first daughter, but it's one that for a number of reasons just kind of popped up since then. And it's the first time that my husband and I have just been in complete agreement on it. So unless something totally dramatic happens, we hear a better name, or we just like wake up in the middle of the night feeling like God does not want us to use it, I'm pretty sure this is gonna be her name. Let's wrap up with a little 27-week bump date. This is the 27 weeks pregnant bump. I feel like I am definitely carrying her more similarly to how I carried my first daughter than to how I carried my son. My son was so low, and I know that that's one of the wise tales that people often say, is that girls are higher, boys are lower, and in my case so far that has been true. I'm feeling a lot of her up here in my rib cage. It's harder to breathe with my girls. That's what she's looking like in there. This dress is one of my favorite dresses ever. It's from Lulu's. I'm sure I will get comments about it, so I'll put a link in the description box for you guys, because it really is just such a flattering dress when you have a baby bump. Speaking of being out of breath, I'm going to wrap this video up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed getting a little bit of an update on where things are at so far in this pregnancy. If you are also pregnant, I want to know how far along you are. I want to know, are we in a similar kind of time frame? Is this your first pregnancy, second, third, all that fun stuff? So definitely share that in the comment section below. And if any of you guys are interested in checking out the Haya multivitamin for your children, wanted to remind you that you can save 50% off with my link. So all you have to do is go to the link in the description box, which is hayahealth.com/BethMoore to save. Thank you again to Haya for working with me on this video. Thank you guys so much for being here. And until my next video, I love you, I am praying for you, and I will see you soon.